This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Manitoba's premier is being accused of breaking the province's conflict of interest laws. A democracy advocate says it happened when Wab Canoe took the Winnipeg Blue Bombers charter plane to attend the Grey Cup 2 years in a row. The I-Team's Caroline Bargout reports.
It was one of the hottest tickets of the year for any Manitoban lucky enough to score a seat at the 2023 Grey Cup in Hamilton. Touchdown! Premier Wab Canoe was there. So was his wife, his son, and one of his assistants. They flew on a plane chartered by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, something that's not allowed under the province's Conflict of Interest Act, unless they get permission beforehand. Documents show the premier expensed his hotel, but not his airfare. Canoe reimbursed the Bombers $8,000 out of pocket for the 4 seats on the plane. His spokesperson insists he went above and beyond all requirements. A spokesperson for the Bombers said the charter is organized for fans, sponsors, and families, adding that the premier personally paid fair market value for the trip, even though we believed it wasn't necessary. Duff Conacher is the co-founder of Democracy Watch.
Accepting the seat on the plane for himself and others is what causes the conflict. That's the gift. It doesn't matter whether he pays for it. No one member of the public could have gotten seats on that plane, even if they paid for it.
The law says any private air travel must be approved by the Ethics Commissioner. Records show that did not happen, not for the 2023 Grey Cup or the 2024 game.
But the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have been...
In 2024, the premier took his wife and son to the game and also flew on a Bombers charter. He didn't expense anything for that trip. Mayor Scott Gillingham also went to the Grey Cup in those years. He was offered a seat on the Bombers charter, but chose to fly commercial instead.
If you want to have good government that actually addresses public concerns instead of protecting private interests, then you have to follow those rules. And the premier in this situation violated the rules by accepting the flight.
First, we were told the government paid for Canoe's assistance flight. Then we were told the premier actually paid for it. We were also told Canoe paid for his own hotel. Then we were told the government paid for it. Then last week, his chief of staff said he had new information to share. He said the premier paid for his own hotel, but did not explain why disclosure documents show the government paid for it. That raised some red flags for Wayne Owasco, interim leader of the Manitoba Progressive Conservative Party.
That tells me that there's more to the story, and there's something going on. He's hiding something. I hate to say that, but to me, the inconsistencies don't seem to be adding up.
He also questions why the premier didn't provide any proof or documentation showing when and how much he paid. CBC News filed the Freedom of Information request in September 2024 to get this information. The legislation says records should be provided within 45 days. In this case, it took 170 days and an ombudsman complaint to get it. Owasco says the PCs will likely file a complaint with the Ethics Commissioner.
The premier wants to be accountable and transparent to Manitobans. Well, here's a great time to show what's what.
Duff Conacher says the premier should apologize to Manitobans for breaking the conflict of interest laws. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now, it was the premier's travel that dominated talk in the legislature Monday, hours after CBC reported the news. Wab Canoe responded by defending himself and saying he met with the Ethics Commissioner earlier today. For more, we're joined by the CBC's Ian Fraze live in the newsroom. So, Ian, what happened in that meeting?
Well, the premier says he was told that he should have disclosed his Grey Cup trips. Canoe told media Monday he thought by paying for the trip himself, he was doing everything right. No need to tell the commissioner. Canoe now says he realizes that's not enough, and he's apologized.
Paid my own way. I figured that was the end of it. So yeah, I do apologize to Manitobans. Obviously, this was something that I should have said, hey, I'm paying for the tickets to the Grey Cup, and now you all know about it. I should have said that earlier.
Earlier in the afternoon, the Progressive Conservatives asked the Ethics Commissioner to investigate. Interim leader Wayne Owasco says Manitobans deserve to know the truth.
I want to be clear that it's not about attending the Grey Cup. That's not the issue. It's about following the law and about disclosing the thousands of dollars that he may or may not have paid for that chartered air service.
Meanwhile, Ian, there's big news about a progressive Conservative MLA who's stepping down. So what do we know so far?
Spruce Woods MLA Grant Jackson was sitting in the legislature this afternoon. He read a petition after question period, and then maybe 30 minutes later, the Speaker telling the House that the rookie MLA has resigned. Now, this is a big loss for the Tories. Jackson is one of the party's best performers in the legislature. We've learned just in the last 30 minutes that he is resigning because he's going to run for the federal Conservatives in Brandon-Souris in April's election. The Conservative MP for that area, Larry Maguire, announced that he would not run again, citing health reasons. Just making that announcement yesterday, Jackson was telling media that it's emotional to try to take over for Maguire, who was his first boss in politics. But Jackson says he's honored to have the chance to represent the riding federally. And we've just heard that Wally Dodgers, the leadership candidate for the PCs, he says that he now would like to run in Brandon-Souris. This is a developing story. Brittany.
All right, thank you, Ian. That's CBC's Ian Fraze. As Canada's election kicks off, polls suggest the Liberals and Conservatives are neck and neck in popular support. The same polls suggest support for the New Democratic Party is at historic lows. As CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, this spells potential trouble for the NDP in Manitoba.
Around the time this guy announced his plans to resign, support for the Liberal Party of Canada was near rock bottom. Then Donald Trump returned to the White House, launched a trade war, and threatened annexation. Now national polls suggest Liberal support has rebounded to the point where if an election were held today, Mark Carney's party might hold on to power. Polling in Manitoba reveals the same remarkable rebound. A probe research poll of Manitoba voter intentions in early March found the Liberals and Conservatives in a statistical dead heat in this province, with 44 and 42% of the vote, respectively. The NDP enjoyed the support of 9% of Manitobans, an historic low. These numbers suggest the Liberals may hold on to their existing Winnipeg seats, and the Conservatives will almost certainly retain their rural Manitoba seats. But the New Democrats face potential annihilation in this province.
They're seen as really not even an option for most voters. Really, most voters are looking at this election as a binary choice between Poilievre and now Mark Carney.
Polling analysts say all three NDP seats in Manitoba are at risk.
They only squeaked by in Elmwood-Transcona. It was a by-election. But if those patterns hold at all and the NDP continues to drop, then they might be in danger there. And you can't take for granted that Nikki Ashton in the north or even Leah Gazan in Winnipeg Centre would be safe.
Gazan says the polls don't matter.
The polls have never really reflected the results in Winnipeg Centre. And really, regardless of the polls, that doesn't impact how hard I work.
Gazan is running against a 23-year-old former Liberal staffer who was acclaimed as his party's candidate in Winnipeg Centre in December, when Leah Gazan looked unbeatable.
The reason why I wanted to run is because this is my home riding, and I feel that I can make the biggest difference here. And so that's why I put my name to run, regardless of what the polls were saying at the time.
These numbers, of course, are just a snapshot in time. Campaigns can and usually do matter. Election Day in Canada is 5 long weeks away. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A 40-year-old man is in custody for allegedly killing a 33-year-old woman from Norway House First Nation. Winnipeg police say they were called early Saturday about a domestic assault at a home in the 1000 block of Selkirk Avenue. They found the woman with severe injuries. She later died in hospital. She's been identified as Stephanie Anderson Papanakas. Jason Matthew Keem, also from Norway House, is charged with second-degree murder. Spring and weather specialist Riley Lachuk. And Riley, with that little bit of snow that came Saturday into Sunday, my pup was not a happy one.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm sure by the time you leave tonight, Brittany, it's all gone, because some of these daytime temperatures today. Yeah, I mean, when I was standing here on Friday, maybe I was a little bit optimistic, forecasting a high of 5 degrees for Monday. Well, Look what happened. 5 degrees downtown this afternoon. A nice spring day out there. 7s in Portage and Winkler. 3s and 4s back to the west. We'll enjoy this for a couple of days, and then things start to change a little bit by the time we get toward the end of the week. So mostly sunny skies for the most part today. A little bit of cloud back to the west. Maybe a couple of odd showers into some of this cloud cover. But you know what? It's been a nice bright one today. We'll get a bit of cloud cover rolling in overnight tonight, though. -5 with a westerly wind, fairly light tonight. -4 first thing in the morning. Some peaks of sunshine returning, and then we'll get back to a mix of sun and clouds. 6 degrees tomorrow afternoon, Brittany. It all is maybe a little bit downhill from there. We'll explain when I come back.
Oh, I want to go up on the roller coaster.
We'll try.
Thanks,
You're
Riley.
welcome.
How one man's dream car turned into a nightmare. More on his tariff troubles after the break. Stay with us. We're learning more about a violent extremist group with racial and ethnic motivations. The group is linked to a terrorism-related case here in Winnipeg. It comes as a 19-year-old was charged last week with 4 offenses. RCMP believe he may have been radicalized online and allege he participated in and committed a crime for a terrorist group. Investigators say that group is called MKY. CBC has been digging into what's known about the group. Josh Crabb joins us now. So, Josh, what do we know so far? What is MKY?
Brittany, the acronym comes from the Russian words for maniac murder cult. The group's origins have been traced to Russia and Ukraine dating back to 2018, though experts say MKY now has members around the world. We looked at court documents from the U.S. They say the group promotes a neo-Nazi accelerationist ideology, which means speeding up the destruction of society. The group also promotes violence toward Jews and other, quote, undesirables. Evan Balgord is with the Canadian Anti-Hate Network. He says MKY is fueled by nihilism, defined broadly as a view that existence is meaningless and all values and beliefs should be rejected. Experts say members are encouraged to commit violent and criminal acts and capture them on video.
MKY is just one group in this broader network. They are notable in that they really encourage offline violence.
So, Josh, how is this group linked to the Winnipeg terrorism case?
The RCMP believes they're connected to a mischief case first investigated by Winnipeg police. The letters MKY, along with swastikas, were found spray painted late last year on several structures throughout Winnipeg's Charleswood area. 19-year-old Nevin Young was initially charged with 26 counts of mischief. Last week, he was charged with 4 terrorism-related offenses. Investigators are looking into whether online radicalization played a role. Georgios Samaras is an assistant professor at King's College in London who specializes in far-right extremism. He says groups like MKY target people online who are disillusioned with society and people who want to associate themselves with terrorist activities.
Once this offline action takes place, then they reveal their identity and we have a better understanding of their structure and perhaps their cult-like dynamics.
Samaras points to a U.S. terror plot involving 20-year-old Georgian national Mikhail Chikvishvili, also known as Commander Butcher. He was accused in the U.S. of plotting a mass casualty attack in New York on New Year's Eve in 2023. The attack did not happen. Chikvishvili was arrested in Moldova this past summer and faces 20 years in prison. Brittany.
All right. Thank you, Josh. That's CBC's Josh Crabb. He bought his dream car only to be slapped with a bill worth tens of thousands of dollars when he tried to bring it across the border. He expected to pay taxes and duty. What he wasn't anticipating, the 25% tariff they also hit him with. CBC's Gavin Axelrod brings us his story and the roadblock he narrowly dodged.
And I would probably be polishing it and talking to it.
Pat Fletcher would be doing that if the 1968 Dodge Charger RT he bought was here in his garage. It's his dream car. That dream became a nightmare when the border agents told him it was subject to a 25% tariff on top of other taxes. He was slapped with a bill of over $40,000 to bring it into Manitoba.
I was sick to the stomach, and I went and threw up in the can.
Fletcher bought the Charger for $98,000 US. Right now, it's safely sitting in North Dakota, a stressful situation for the longtime car buff.
People don't realize their attachments from the guys in their cars. When you've been around that all your life.
In a statement to CBC News Sunday, the Canada Border Services Agency says the car may qualify for a 25% surtax, part of billions of dollars worth of goods that the Canadian government imposed tariffs on earlier this month. Plus, regular taxes are charged as required, along with any applicable vehicle import fees. But on Monday, some good news for Fletcher, thanks to a border customs brokerage who contacted the Emerson border crossing on his behalf.
Emerson came back to us at the commercial desk. They said that, they agree with border brokers that this will be able to come in without those surtaxes applied. As a classic car, it's not applicable.
Sarah Abbott says tariffs do apply to certain goods, but in this case, an annex code for classic cars may not have been applied correctly.
We know that it can't be applied to remove surtax when U.S. surtax does apply, but in this case, it was used to apply surtax.
Now, they're aiming to get the car into Winnipeg this week. It's all a relief for Fletcher.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. It's right now, it's like, pinch me, is this real?
Now he's one step closer to getting that sweet ride out on the open roads. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Now, the CBSA tells CBC News it cannot comment on a particular case due to privacy. They also wouldn't confirm the 25% tariff was added by mistake, but say if a traveler feels the surtax has been improperly applied at the border, they can request an adjustment. Riley back in now. And Riley, hopefully people got outside today because it was a beautiful spring day.
Rinse and repeat for tomorrow. I know I like to use that phrase. I'm sorry. It's become one of my catchphrases. And then we'll do it again on Wednesday. And then things kind of fall off the hill as we get toward the weekend again. So
short-term forecast, let's focus on that.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, the next couple days, great if you like a good spring walk. Starting with Futurecast, this is all the result, or at least the coming days, the result of this warm front that stretches way down into the states from this area of low pressure that's over northern Alberta. What this will do is spread a little bit of snow into northern Manitoba as we get into the day on Tuesday. This does start to bring in a little bit of cloud cover in the south again as we start the day tomorrow morning, and even into the Parkland, Dauphin, Roblin, down into Westman. Slight chance of a few flurries. Couple of snowflakes first thing in the morning on Tuesday. As this warm front passes, even a couple of showers not out of the question. We do get some sunshine back as we get into the afternoon hours tomorrow for southern Manitoba, but a little bit more snow along the Hudson Bay coast. Behind that, another low swings through northern Manitoba, so a couple rounds of snow coming for the next couple of days, and with that bringing in a little bit more cloud cover as we get Wednesday into Thursday. That's when we'll start to turn the page here. I'll show you what I mean with our upper atmosphere here. We'll talk about the snow in a second, but as we get through the next couple of days, the jet stream, we're going to be on the warm side of this, so as that front passes, we'll get into a bit more of a southerly flow, some warmer temperatures, but as we get into the weekend, we start to see a ridge starting to build in once again, and this is going to start to cool our temperatures down as we get into the weekend. And by early next week, actually plunge us back down into below seasonal territory with temperatures below the freezing mark as we start the next work week. So yes, short-lived spring-like weather before we return to some colder weather. And there is something on the horizon that I've been watching in time for the weekend. The potential, at least, for some accumulating snow for central and northern parts of the province as we get toward the weekend. We'll talk about that as it gets a bit closer. But for now, though, the next couple of days looking at generally, I think, 2 to 4 centimeters, fairly accurate for parts of northern Manitoba. Lynn Lake, in particular, along the Hudson Bay coast, maybe you get up to 5 centimeters with this couple of rounds of snow coming. But really, the rest of us, couple of snowflakes, couple of rain showers, really not much to speak of other than a little bit of cloud cover into the morning tomorrow. So waking up to -4 in Winnipeg, you can see as that front passes through, -2 in Melita first thing in the morning, -5 in Swan River. In the long range, 6 tomorrow, 7 for Wednesday, and then you can start to see as our pattern starts to change, Brittany, 0s through the weekend. Right now, I've got a chance of light snow in our forecast for Friday.
Okay, thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, despite the snow, here's a sign of spring to go with those warm temperatures. We have more to come right after this. Stay with us. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. The 2025 federal election campaign is underway. Canadians will go to the polls on April 28th in what's shaping up to be a consequential and close election. Parliament was dissolved yesterday, kicking off the 36-day campaign. Mark Carney says he wanted a strong mandate to take measures he says will build a stronger Canada in response to Donald Trump's threats on trade and sovereignty.
President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country. He wants to break us so America can own us. We will not let that happen.
The election call announcement also saw the first Liberal campaign promise, an income tax cut targeting the lowest income bracket. Now on day 2 of the campaign, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre unveiled his first major plank, an income tax cut larger than the Liberals. As Olivia Stefanovic reports, it's not entirely clear how both parties plan to pay for their promises.
Right out of the gate, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre with a major campaign promise.
This is a tax cut that will put Canada first.
A pledge to shave the lowest personal income tax bracket from 15 to 12.75%.
These people behind me, they work hard every day. And yet, at the end of the month, they look at their pay stub and it's tax after tax after tax.
He can't pay for what he announced today.
Poilievre's plan one-ups a pitch made yesterday by the Liberals,
We have a balanced approach. He has a simple approach.
who want to cut the lowest income tax bracket by 1 percentage point instead of just over 2 percentage points.
How the hell do you intend to do that?
The dueling promises fodder for criticism from political rivals.
Yeah, we need to give a tax break to the middle class, but let's give it just the middle class, not to millionaires. And their plan doesn't distinguish. And that, I think, is a massive problem. I think most Canadians would agree.
The tax reductions would indeed help the majority of Canadians, no matter how wealthy they are. Under the Liberal plan, the average worker would save a little more than $400 a year. Under the Conservative plan, that figure jumps to $900.
I don't think you want to let the election pass without telling people how you're going to get to these numbers.
Both proposals would be phased in. The estimated price tag, almost $6 billion a year for the Liberal tax cut, and up to $14 billion annually for the Conservatives.
We know that something has to give. We know there have to be cuts.
But the leaders aren't saying specifically what those cuts will be. So far, Poilievre says he will eliminate government waste and bureaucracy, while Carney says he will review federal spending programs. The fine details to be released later in the campaign when the parties put out their costed platforms. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
Meantime, a farmer near Eli here in Manitoba worries issues important to Western producers will be lost in this federal election. Alexander Bersch says his biggest issue is the tariffs put on Canadian canola by China. He says the Canadian policy of 100% tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles is damaging a multi-billion-dollar industry to protect an industry that doesn't exist yet. He says Canadian producers are caught in the middle.
But we're in a position now where we've been painted into a corner by policies against China when our biggest customer, the U.S., is in a battle with us. So we need to address this issue and really quickly.
He would also like to see more investment in infrastructure to help producers get their goods to customers. Meantime, Elections Canada has announced new measures to protect the integrity of this federal election. It comes in the wake of past attempts to affect our democracy by foreign actors and through online misinformation. Alexander Silberman has more.
I am confident that we will deliver a safe election.
Canada's chief electoral officer promising to keep a close eye on election security and outlining plans to fight online misinformation just weeks after the final report from the public inquiry into foreign interference.
It was clear that some electors felt intimidated in voting, and I thought it was important to remind electors in different languages, through different mediums, that the vote is secret.
Elections Canada says it's been in touch with social media companies such as X and TikTok, seeking their support to prevent interference. It's also launching ElectoFacts, a new online tool to list and debunk online misinformation related to the federal election, and promising to tell Canadians about any foreign interference incidents if they're deemed serious enough to affect the election results. But the threat remains, according to this expert.
I think the problem is that nothing's been done about that. Apart from a lot of talk and rhetoric, we still don't have a foreign agent registry, and we just have more amplified social media and more amplified algorithms and, rabbit holes that people go into.
Elections Canada's assurances come as Alberta's premier is facing questions about whether she asked the U.S. to take action that could impact the election here. In an interview last month with American media outlet Breitbart, Danielle Smith said since the U.S. tariff threat, support for the Liberals has increased.
So I would hope that we could put things on pause, is what I've told administration officials. Let's just put things on pause so we can get through an election.
Smith's office says any suggestion she asked the U.S. to intervene is offensive and false. When asked if Smith's remarks violate any election laws, a government official said this.
We can say that we're aware of Premier Smith's comments, but that they don't meet the definition of interference, and so we are not looking into them.
Elections Canada says it's closely watching for threats from foreign actors. It's working with security partners, including CSIS and the RCMP, to protect elections workers, voters, and polling places throughout the campaign. It's also encouraging people who see information about the election they believe is inaccurate or misleading to report it. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Ottawa.
When it comes to reaching voters, Canada's major party leaders are using different tactics. CBC's Yvette Brend looks at what each are doing and how some Canadians are responding.
Mike Myers, what are you doing here?
In less than 24 hours, about 10 million people watched Mark Carney's newest ad, which featured a big assist from Mike Myers.
What are the two seasons in Toronto? Winter and construction. Wow. You really are Canadian.
The use of the Canadian celebrity seemingly part of the Liberal leader's strategy.
It's all invoking this idea that this is Team Canada.
As to whether it's hitting, those reviews are mixed.
Well, it's not genuine. I mean, it's important to me, but it's not genuine.
But Carney's not alone with his patriotic appeal.
So when Pierre says, it doesn't matter who you know or where you're from,
Pierre Poilievre has used Canada First as a rallying cry while also trying to highlight his family, his wife, the voice behind some of his ads.
His children know him in Francais, Espanol, and English as Papa.
So introducing himself and his family is a kind of a first family vibe, if you like, to show that this is a family like any other that has the same kind of concerns as Canadians.
Of course it's a tactic. It's not a bad one, obviously.
I worked for minimum wage to take care of my family when my dad was sick.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is also trying to deliver a personal touch.
I retie my turban at least once a day just to
getting in on a hot TikTok trend. In what's known as a Get Ready With Me video, Singh is hoping to grab the attention of young people. Already it's had more than 4 million views.
They believe they can bring in the first-time voters into their fold, which is going to help that party grow.
But it's not enough to capture this potential voter.
It's embarrassed to say I never participated in an election, even though I hear sometimes they knock on my door.
While the campaign is only just beginning, in this short race, parties will have to get creative to find new ways to meet busy Canadians where they're at, even if that differs from person to person. Yvette Brend, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, if you want to see where federal parties are in the polls, we have our CBC Poll Tracker. It aggregates every publicly available poll, and you can find it on our CBC News website or the CBC News app. Liquidation sales have begun at Canada's oldest company. Almost all Hudson's Bay stores are now selling off their inventory after a court approved the company's plan to wind down operations. Ali Shiasen reports.
Everything in the store has already been torn apart, so today is the first official day of the liquidation, but half of the store is already gone.
The Bay's last days likely are here. The liquidation sale kicked off at most stores.
I bought a couple, like a blazer and some pants and a couple shirts.
Bargain hunters are hoping to get their hands on the coveted Bay branded gear while they still can.
A lot of the stuff that I was looking for isn't there anymore. So yeah, like the blankets, I was looking for a good deal on a bra. They're all gone.
They're good. It's 50%, 60%, so that's not bad.
And that's just the beginning. As the merchandise dwindles, they ratchet up the sales.
The liquidator will increase discounts as the sale goes on when sizing becomes an issue, when selection becomes an issue.
The Bay is set to close nearly all of its 80 stores as it tries to crawl out from a deep debt. For now, just 6 locations will remain. Most of the 9,300 employees face layoffs. Also caught up in the liquidation, brand owners. Some can't afford to let their products go at such deep discounts.
We just can't stomach it.
Olivia Globerzon pulled her merchandise from the Toronto area Oakville store slated to close.
A brand producing overseas, you know, they have a great margin. Maybe their cost of goods sold is 20% of their sales price. So they have a lot more wiggle room to discount, whereas we don't.
She had a feeling the end was near after the last couple of Black Fridays were dead.
When I went to the rest of the mall, it was like the mall was packed and the Bay was quiet. We were really happy to be in when there was people in there.
When there was people in there.
Key phrase there. Key phrase, yes.
Many Bay shelves will soon be empty and stores vacated June 30th. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Paving a positive path for the next generation and getting these girls more time on the ice. More on that straight ahead. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. It was a chance to see what their future could look like. And for girls in hockey, it's brighter than ever before. Dozens of young players laced up this weekend for skill training sessions and to get a little inspiration from a PWHL player that's helping to shape a new generation. CBC's Gavin Axelrod has more.
Should we sign the jerseys? What do you think?
Chopping it up with one of the pros. These future hockey stars got to spend their Saturday with professional women's hockey league player Jessica DiGirolamo.
Yeah, this is my job now, but I want to impact the youth and I want to continue to grow the game and allow the girls to be like, hey, you know what, I can be like her one day.
The festivities included on-ice clinics and the chance to ask DiGirolamo just about anything about the game.
It was kind of funny. I'm getting asked questions if I've been in the penalty box, how many penalty minutes, have I ever been benched? Like it's like funny questions.
All of it making for an exciting day for the youngsters.
My favorite part is when I like to beat defense and score goals sometimes. It makes me feel happy.
Same way, you can go on that side if you want. Some of the parents who brought their kids to the event also underscoring its importance. Nomi Bedek and her family immigrated to Canada from the Philippines, living in Dauphin before moving to Winnipeg. She says she and her husband didn't know much about the game, so being able to give their daughter a chance to interact with one of the pros is very meaningful.
For them to see other girls, other females that are excelling in this kind of sports, it helps them, try their best and try to play this sport as well.
And try to turn those big hockey dreams into reality. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A standing room only crowd in Brandon got to cheer on a national champion. That is the winning shot as the Brandon University Bobcats fought their way to the top of the U Sports Championship last night. This is their first ever national title in men's volleyball. The Bobcats beat the defending champion Alberta Golden Bears 3-1. This is head coach Grant Wilson right after the win.
Unbelievable, it's indescribable. Everything you dreamed of, it's crazy.
The Bobcats title comes exactly 1 week after the University of Manitoba Bison's women's volleyball team was crowned national champs on their home court. You could hear, could see the excitement. You could see the shots. They're shaking because of excitement. Big congratulations to the Bobcats.
Yeah, great job and great news for Brandon.
Big news. Love it.
Absolutely. Yesterday was National Puppy Day.
Oh!
I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't.
Well, now you know.
I'm late to the party. I'll have to get on posting a picture after.
Well, you know what? We'll celebrate tonight with your dog walking forecast, which is Riley this evening. Thank you, Kim, for sending this picture, and very cute. You can always send your pets to me at talkback@cbc.ca. I love the name. So we are looking at some cloud cover into the morning hours tomorrow. Some peaks of sunshine first thing, -4, but once that warm front moves through, look what happens to our temperatures. Optimistically at 6 tomorrow afternoon. Mix of sun and clouds, bit of a northwest breeze as that first area of low pressure starts to move across the northern part of the province with a little bit of snow. So might be a bit of a bite in the air, but nonetheless, I think we'll get back to a mix of sun and clouds by the afternoon. 7 degrees still in Melita, as well as in Morden, Portage, La Prairie. Winnipeg's at 5 at the moment, and looking at temperatures closer to freezing in Thompson and even down to -11 in Churchill at the moment. Couple of things happening big picture. First, I want to show you what's happening along the eastern seaboard. Pretty large system making its way up the eastern U.S., bringing some snow and some mixing, even some winter storm and snowfall warnings in place or parts of New Brunswick. This all extends back to the east with another area of low pressure over northern Ontario, bringing some snow, some lake effect snow even to parts of the southern part of Ontario, even into the greater Toronto area. West, another atmospheric river event into the south coast of Vancouver Island. The Sunshine Coast expecting by the end of today up to 130 millimeters of rain. Yes, it's been a very wet weekend on the west coast and a lot of snow to the east coast. And we're kind of in the middle of this with some spring-like weather here on the prairies, but that is changing as we get toward the weekend. So -5 to -7s really through Westman tonight. Clouds start to build in, mostly cloudy skies. That means out of some of this, maybe a couple of stray flurries on the western edge of the province, and then down to -11s to -14s really into northwestern Ontario tonight with some clearer skies tonight. The OCN -10 tonight, -13 in Gillam, -11 in Shamattawa. Into the day on Tuesday, there's that first area of low pressure as it makes its way across northern parts of the province, -4s by the afternoon through Flin Flon, the +5 in Thompson by the afternoon. So some of this starting as snow before switching over to rain as we get into the afternoon hours. In the south, cloudy start to the day for Westman. We'll get some of that cloud cover building in. Out of some of this, maybe a few stray flurries early in the day, but as we get into the afternoon, this becomes a chance of showers up to 6 in Portage, Winnipeg, and close to 5 degrees tomorrow in northwestern Ontario. Brittany.
Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
The Southern Chiefs organization says it's putting more than $1.5 million into a new campaign aimed at bringing health equity to First Nations. Part of it will center around traditional Indigenous teachings. Traditionally, food is recognized for its holistic medicinal properties. SCO says that's why it's pushing First Nations to grow more sustainable food and help people reconnect to the land. It's also supporting physical health by sponsoring youth athletes.
The Anishinaabe and Dakota teachings are powerful. They kept us here for a millennia. Unfortunately, today, there's a documented 11-year life expectancy gap growing between First Nation citizens and others throughout Manitoba.
Daniel says they're investing in the health and well-being of First Nations in a holistic way. Through online and in-person tutorials, younger Filipino Canadians are learning Baybayin, an ancient Filipino script. It predates the colonization of the Philippines and was previously a lost language. Now it's making a comeback with younger generations.
Baybayin means a lot to me personally. I put a lot of value into it because of our colonial history. So connecting to my roots, my way of doing that is learning about Baybayin. My name is Ali Gonzalo. I am a first-generation Filipino immigrant. I am an artist and I also teach Baybayin. I've been living here in Treaty 1 territory, also known as Winnipeg, for over 8 years now. Moved here 2016, and then when I moved here, that's when I did a diploma in photography. Baybayin is a traditional Filipino writing script, more accurately called a syllabary than a collection of characters like an alphabet. The big change that caused me to become more interested in it is my immigration here to Winnipeg. Having left my motherland, I really wanted to find a way to feel more connected. And so I was like, well, I know I could teach myself. Why don't I just familiarize myself with this writing script even more?
Baybayin is a writing system that the Filipinos used before they were colonized by the Spanish. It's not clear exactly when it started to be used in the Philippines. It could have been there in the 1400s, 1500s definitely. Sort of faded out in the 1700s, and it was pretty much forgotten in the 1800s. Now, because of the internet and the newer generations, they're just more interested in it, so it's coming back. I came across a book that had a 2-page article about Baybayin. When I got a computer, there were no fonts for Baybayin, so I learned how to make fonts, and I put my fonts away online for free.
So that's a Filipino. And the cool thing for me is that's not a historical design. That's my personal font that I made for myself and my website, and they used it on the money.
It gradually just got forgotten. It wasn't needed. It carried on. Little known until today, where it's becoming more popular as a cultural thing. A lot of people are using it in logos and getting tattoos.
Filipino calligrapher from Calgary. This is Sarili, which means self, and I read it from my perspective. This one says Ligaya, so that means joy or happiness. So self-happiness, happiness for yourself. I found a way to integrate my learning of Baybayin in my art. I recently did a public art exhibition, And what I did basically was a collection of photographs that I've taken back home, as well as write the Filipino national anthem in Baybayin. I wanted to do that because I wanted to honor my Filipino heritage and show to everyone else who's not Filipino that there is a rich and diverse writing system that exists back home, and Baybayin is just one of them. Now that I've learned how to write it from memory, it means that there's a whole new world that opens up in terms of connecting to our identity. Not only do I get to connect to my ancestors, I also get to share this knowledge with fellow Filipinos, fellow immigrants. What I would say to fellow Filipino Canadians, if they want to connect with their Filipino heritage, is just explore Baybayin. The worst thing that would happen really is just like, well, you didn't learn it in a day. I didn't learn it in a day either.
A big bonanza for Beatles fans. How a record store owner in Vancouver was stunned to find he had a very special tape in his collection. Plus, Riley's back with the last check on your forecast. An Easter egg hunt is underway in London.
The Big Egg Hunt is a citywide public art exhibition We launched it in partnership with Clarence Court this morning.
It features more than 100 giant decorated egg sculptures scattered about the British capital. It's meant to raise awareness about Asian wildlife conservation. The public is invited to get cracking on collecting the eggs by finding and ticking them off on a free app.
That's very neat. So we're looking at some cloud cover tomorrow. I mean, not as bright as it was today, but we'll get some clearing going by the afternoon, +6 by the afternoon. Maybe I'm a little optimistic. I think we can get there, though. A bit of a northwesterly breeze. Up to 7 degrees for Wednesday, and then we start to tank a little bit here, back to the freezing mark. I've been keeping my eye on a system that could impact us Friday into Saturday with some accumulating snow a little bit further to the north. -1 for Saturday, a bit of a windy weekend ahead, -3 for Sunday, and then we'll start to get some clearing back by the time we get to next Monday again. But temperatures returning to below seasonal and below freezing by the time we get into next week. A record store owner in Vancouver was stunned when he made a surprising discovery recently.
It turns out that a dusty old record that had been on one of his shelves is actually a rare find. Have a good listen to our Daily Lift. This reel-to-reel tape was labeled Beatles 60s Demos. It'd been sitting on a shelf in a record shop, and it was only discovered when the shop owner was working with some other old tapes at his friend's studio. It appears to be a rare, high-quality copy of the Beatles audition tape at Decca Records in 1962.
Found this tape that's been kicking around the store for years, which I thought was just a reel-to-reel tape that someone had put bootleg things on, because it said Beatles 60s Demos. We ended up putting it on just to check it out, and then we just couldn't believe what we were hearing. It seemed like the Beatles were in the room.
Now, the tape appears to have made its way to Vancouver, get this, about 50 years ago, but exactly how it ended up in the record shop isn't clear. The owner, by the way, says he'll probably keep it in his collection, or if Paul McCartney comes to Vancouver, he'll buy him dinner and probably just give the tape back to him.
Well, wouldn't that be something?
Something.
See?
A, the tape, and B, the Paul McCartney part.
You always got to listen. Don't throw anything away first.
Yeah.
That's it for us tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow.